Zidane's Real Madrid, a tactical analysis, why Zizou could be gone by November. Before this video starts, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you don't miss out on any of the tactical analysis, scout reports or fantasy football videos coming up over the next few weeks, and give this video a like if you enjoy it. I've also put a quiz question in the comment section below, just go down there and see if you can get the answer right. If you like the instrumental music in this video, I'll put his channel name in the description below and up in the information tab above, so go check out some of his other videos and subscribe to his channel. I'm first going to tactically analyse how Zidane set up his side in his previous reign, then analyse the potential systems that Zidane could deploy this season, and at the end I'll talk about the potential problems Madrid could face this season, before giving my prediction at the end of the video. I'll leave time markers in the comment section below so you can skip to the parts you want to. After a terrible season last campaign under the leadership of Julian Lopetegui and then Santiago Solari, Florentino Perez turned to Zinedine Zidane, giving him the reins to reshape this underperforming, dysfunctional Real Madrid side. Eden Hazard has been the marquee signing so far this summer, with Ferland Mendy, Luka Jovic, Rodrigo and Eden Militao coming in as well. Despite the much rumoured overhaul of the previous generation of Champions League treble winners, the likes of Modric, Kroos, Ramos, Benzema and Isco are still at the club and look like being fixtures in the first team this year. Throughout his first reign, Zidane used a 4-3-3, 4-4-2 variation system, or sometimes moving to a 4-2-3-1 when chasing the game in the last 30 minutes of matches. In possession, Madrid was starting a 4-3-3, with Casemiro playing in a deeper single pivot, in behind Modric and Kroos. The right winger, either Lucas Vazquez, Marco Asensio or Gareth Bale, would play as an inside forward, staying wide during the build-up before moving inside in the final third. Ronaldo on the other side was given more of a free role, playing as a Raumdeuter, with Benzema's style of play complementing him, allowing him to play this role. Benzema played as a deep line forward who would move deep from the front line to link the attack, but would also make runs into the channels, which would pull the centre backs apart, thereby giving Ronaldo space in the middle. Casemiro played as an anchor man, whose job it was to sit behind the ball in possession, looking to break up the play if Real Madrid lost the ball and recycle the ball by playing simple passes into the more creative players ahead of him. Toni Kroos was a deep line playmaker of the side, while Modric was more of an industrious roaming playmaker who dribbled with the ball into the final third a lot more, but both were critical to Madrid's attack when in possession, as they had the passing range to switch the play quickly and allow Madrid to double up in wide areas versus the fullbacks. Whilst the centre midfield for Zidane's side was rather conservative in terms of the amount of runs forward they made, the fullbacks Marcelo and Dani Carvajal were aggressive when bombing forward, leading counter-attacks with their dribbling and providing the options on the flanks for quick switches. The creativity from the fullbacks was a big part of Madrid's attack, as it meant that Ronaldo received more quality aerial chances in the box. It also gave Madrid's forward line in general more space, as the opposition fullbacks would have to move across to close down Carvajal or Marcelo, which would leave spaces for the likes of Asensio, Bale or Benzema. When out of possession, the 4-3-3 would become a 4-5-1 if the opposition funneled their attacks down the channels using the fullbacks, in which case Ronaldo and Bale would drop into a flat 5 in midfield in order to cut up the passing lanes to the advancing fullbacks. If the opposition moved their attacks forward via the centre of the park, then Zidane would move to a 4-4-2 shape, with Ronaldo and Benzema playing as the first defensive line, creating a box around the opposition central midfielders with Casemiro and Kroos behind them. Modric would usually shift more to the left, whilst Bale would drop back in on the right to create a narrow 4 in midfield. This shape would force the ball out wide, where Carvajal and Marcelo would move out to press the wingers aggressively and suffocate the attack with limited options from out wide. However, with no Cristiano Ronaldo at his disposal, Zidane's focal point of the attack is gone and he'll need to adapt the system, with Hazard coming in on that left side being more of an inside forward than a Raumdeuter. So what are the systems that Zidane could use this season? In games where Madrid are the dominant side and the opposition sit back in a deep block 4-5-1 or 4-4-2, Zidane could set up his side in a 4-3-3 with the back four of Carvajal, Varane, Ramos and Mendy, with Casemiro anchoring the midfield with Modric and a more creative playmaker ahead of him. The reason why I would advise Zidane against using both Kroos and Modric ahead of Casemiro is that I feel that Kroos performs the same role as Modric in terms of recycling possession and switching the play, but lacks the industriousness and athleticism that Modric has in order to break up the play and join the high press. James Rodriguez or Isco should be used in the more advanced role of the midfield three, as both are better when it comes to advancing the attack via dribbles and playing incisive passes and creating in the final third. Kroos can often be accused of drifting through games, being very good at spreading the play from deep positions, but last season he often lacked the ability to unlock a defence with an incisive pass. Ideally, Madrid would have kept Llorente and Ceballos and played Llorente at the base of midfield, with Ceballos and Modric ahead of him. Llorente is much better on the ball than Casemiro, he's more press resistant and able to dribble out of the press with the ball, which would allow the two central midfielders ahead of him to position themselves higher up the pitch. Ceballos seems like the perfect roaming playmaker for Madrid, especially with Modric aging. He has tackling ability, athleticism, dribbling ability and creativity to fill that role perfectly, and with Llorente behind him and Isco next to him, Real Madrid would have had a dynamic, press-resistant midfield which can transition the attack quickly, but with Kroos and Casemiro in that midfield trio, I feel that Zidane's side may lack the ability to inject energy into the attack from deep. The three forwards would include Luka Jovic or Benzema as the main striker, with Hazard on the left and Asensio when fit, or more probably Vinicius Jr. on the right. The battle between Jovic and Benzema to be Zidane's first choice centre forward would eventually be won by Jovic because he is 21, Benzema is 31, and the Serb will improve dramatically over the coming years, but Benzema will inevitably hit a decline soon. But in terms of this season, Zidane may start Benzema if he wants to play the deep line forward in a 4-3-3, who can drop deep from the front line and link the midfield and attack. With Hazard on the left, Benzema dropping deep would provide the necessary link man, which Hazard thrives on when playing, as seen with Giroud at Chelsea and Costa before him. Even so, at the moment I'd start Jovic right now because he's a better poacher type striker in and around the box, and with his off the ball movement and first time finishing, he'd be a better option in that position than Benzema. Having Jovic positioned on the shoulder of the backline would create space between the midfield and defence where Hazard and Isco could move into. If Zidane used Marcelo as a left back, his crossing ability would be a deadly weapon with someone as good in the air as Jovic is, and with Carvajal on the other side, Zidane could potentially recreate the threat from the flanks that he had in his previous spell with Ronaldo as a target from crossing positions. In possession, Mendy or Marcelo, depending on the game, would advance down the left, providing a width in the system, allowing Hazard to drift inside into the half spaces. Mendy's a better low crosser, more dynamic and much better defensively than Marcelo, so if Jovic's aerial threat is nullified by the aerial ability of the centre backs, or if there is a significant threat down the right flank, then Mendy would probably be the better option. Vinicius Jr. on the right is more of a winger type of wide attacker than Hazard, so rather than moving narrow into the half spaces, he'd likely stretch the pitch in a similar way to how Mahrez does for Manchester City. Madrid wouldn't be reliant on Carvajal to provide the width on the right side as Mendy would be on the left, so when Mendy does over or underlap Hazard, Modric could shuffle across to cover that left-sided channel in case of a turnover, which would create a double pivot in midfield at times, with Isco or James Rodriguez ahead. I wouldn't expect Zidane's side to be aggressive in the press by pushing midfielders forward to put pressure on the opposition from the build-up. I think his side would be more suited to dropping into a 4-5-1 when without the ball, drawing the opposition forward and then being able to use the dribbling ability of the fullbacks as well as Vinicius and Hazard to transition the attack quickly. Alternatively, Zidane could opt to use a 4-4-2 system, which he deployed in the Champions League towards the end of his reign. The back four of Carvajal, Varane, Ramos and Mendy would remain constant, with Casemiro being the ball winner alongside Kroos or Modric in midfield, and this double pivot would have the task of recycling the ball and switching the attack efficiently, but unlike in the 4-3-3, both players would have the task of holding their positions and act as defensive linchpins in front of the back line, allowing the fullbacks to venture forward. The wide players, Hazard from the left and either Isco, James or Vinicius from the right, would move a lot more narrow than they would in the 4-3-3, as the adventurous fullbacks would provide the width, allowing them to move narrow into the half spaces. The front two of Benzema and Jovic would consist of Benzema dropping deep, being the link man in between the two wide playmakers, whilst Jovic would serve the role of a typical poacher, staying in between the two centre backs and looking to make runs in behind the back line to stretch the pitch. The 4-4-2 would probably be better deployed in La Liga games against sides who play a narrow system, as the fullbacks would force the opposition's wide players back into deep positions, and whereas Madrid often struggled last season to break through deep defensive units and find space between the midfield and defence, the wide players, Hazard and Vinicius, would have a lot more joy playing in the half spaces between the fullbacks and their midfield than they would have playing in behind the striker in a number 10 position, where the central midfielders are a lot more aware of closing off those passing lanes. The 4-3-3 would probably be better to use in games where the opposition pushes their fullbacks forward as an attacking outlet and looks to stretch the pitch to create half spaces for the wide players to move into. Vinicius and Hazard aren't the most defensively disciplined, so if a side such as Borussia Dortmund push their fullbacks forward and wide players move narrow, then they could get joy finding space between Madrid's wide players and central midfielders, whereas in the 4-5-1, the three central midfielders would be able to cover these passing lanes, allowing the wide players to stay slightly wider. So what are the potential problems that Zidane and Real Madrid could face this season? Well, the tension between Florentino Perez and Zizou has been rumbling throughout the transfer window, with Zidane reportedly unhappy that a central midfielder at the level of Paul Pogba hasn't been brought in. There's also the Gareth Bale situation, which threatens to carry on beyond the transfer window. With Bale unwilling to take a pay cut and Madrid unhappy to take a PR loss in this situation, it now looks likely that the Welshman will stay at the Bernabeu. Over recent days, Zidane and £50 million signing Luka Jovic's relationship has been called into question, with Zidane not impressed with the Serb's ability and reportedly willing to let him leave on loan this season, despite not having played a competitive game for Madrid. This would be a terrible decision, as Jovic is obviously good enough to start ahead of Benzema and would bring the clinical finishing ability that they have lacked without CR7, but you can almost guarantee that if he stays, he won't start the season in the starting lineup. There are also reports that Perez is unhappy with the condition that Hazard has come back to pre-season in, which is another potential match which could start a whole fire in the Madrid dressing room. To me, from a personnel perspective, Madrid lack a dynamic creator in midfield who can play 50 games next season, with Modric and Kroos often fading through the big games, and certainly Modric not being able to play 50 odd games throughout the whole of next season, which you would have thought would have been enough for Madrid to bring in some sort of replacement. Letting Ceballos and Llorente go was a disastrous decision for me, as they were the perfect players for Zidane to put straight into the midfield three this season. The Pogba deal doesn't look like it will happen, and Madrid seem like they are pursuing Donny van de Beek more than Christian Eriksen, which is confusing, as Madrid need a deep line playmaker like Eriksen, and Van de Beek is more of a box-to-box midfielder. So overall, I think Zidane's Madrid is a bomb waiting to explode. They've looked disorganised in pre-season and got absolutely embarrassed by Atletico. The reinforcements in midfield haven't come, and there are relationship problems already between Zidane, Perez and a number of the first team players. And with their rivals strengthening significantly, you could see a slow start and Zidane could be out the door before November, or could even walk away before that. My prediction is that Madrid will start the season sluggishly, and Zidane will walk away or be sacked by November time, and the season will play out similar to how it did last season. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and share the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and check out the quiz question in the comment section below.